It's great to be here at First. I'm just thinking back a few years ago. I remember the ground digging ceremony, getting ready for the community center. Were you guys there? Anybody else there? That was a great experience. That was like 7 years ago, wasn't it? And I just have always loved hearing the stories of First United Methodist Church in Mount Sterling and how we helped get that thing started from a little place to now a great big place. That's a wonderful ministry. And it just reminds me that, you know, with community ministries, Capillary Community Ministries, if you look at our brochure, there's like 60 different great ministries. You're one of all those. You're part of the network of ministries going on, outreach ministries in 9 counties across the Capillary North and South District. Like you ever been to Village Chapel Skate Park? They have a great outreach ministry with youth. Up in Asheville, not too far away. And of course, we're involved with Church for All People. Widening has a great ministry not too far away, one community ministry in Circleville, and it goes on and on. So thank you for your portion of giving and how you support everyone else as they support you in the wonderful ministry you're doing right here. And thank you also for your great children's message inviting us. We feel very welcome, huh? Anna's going to talk in a minute, but we really appreciate your welcome, and this is a very welcoming church. I just wanted, before I jump in, wanted to mention a little announcement. Taking it to the next level training, April 13th, 9 to 12:30 at Broad Street. And when I think about it, we're going to offer things that you do all three. I think pantries, meals, and health, children and youth, persons with disabilities, and older adults. So those are 3 different areas we're going to break into. And I think you could probably send people to each one of those because you're involved in all those, in some way in all those ministries, right? Where's Annie? Up there. Oh, she's downstairs. Anyway, I think you guys do it all, so that's pretty exciting. Oh, there you are, Annie. Yeah, I'm talking about you. So anyway, one new thing we're doing at Community Ministries is called the Job Creation Task Force. And Anna is here with me. She serves on our task force and on our board, along with Mike. And one thing we're doing is we're selling necklaces, which you're going to get a chance to buy. Some of you already have one. And soap a little bit after the service. You'll get to hear more about that. The crochet necklaces, some of them are made at the main trailer park near the airport. It's the Community of Hope Latino Ministry, which is again one of the ministries supported by your portion of giving. And when they make these, $5 goes back to the woman that makes them, $4 goes to the Community of Hope, and $1 goes back to community ministries to help start new ministries. And that's how Anna was able to get started with her Root of Things soap ministry, which you have in the green sheet in your bulletin on the back. It's a lot of information about that, and I'll mention that. But we're going to see a video right now about the necklace ministry at the main trailer park. And this is, it's being run by the Eastside Latino Ministry, and Karen Brantley from the West Ohio Conference is the one that buys the necklaces from the women, and then we take them out and sell them all over the place. So let's check out that video.
Well, I just want to share with anybody that's listening to this or watching this video how important is prayer is, how much blessings it can bring to my life. It has helped me in many different ways, mentally, like it helps me with the stress. I'm doing something that I actually love doing, and economically, financially, it has been really good because my husband has lost his job and I lost my job. This has helped me sometimes put food on my table, pay my bills. Right now that my kids went back to school, or are going back to school, buying shoes, buying school supplies. It is amazing how much this can help, a person.
Me gusta pues te ayuda pues también para pagar un combustible o para salir juntos con la familia, comer.
Support this ministry because it's super, super important. It makes me feel good in many ways. It makes me feel good that I can provide. It makes me feel productive, you know. And this is wonderful. This is something that can reach a lot of families. Right now it's something small, but if you support this ministry, it can be something huge. It could be life-changing situations where people, are being, their life is changed because of something like this.
There's so many ways to widen the welcome, as we see in this little story here, and that's our theme this year, by the way, widening the welcome. We like to have a theme each year, and kind of gets us on a new path, new energy, new ideas. And so widening the welcome is what we're going to talk about this morning. And I think you know this, but what does it take to widen the welcome? What would you say? What does it take to be a church that widens the welcome? You said everybody's welcome, right? But how do we widen that welcome? How do we make people feel welcome? That's the challenge. Yeah. It's not easy, but I think what we want to try to do is offer a welcome to people that think they're excluded, that think they don't belong. They're afraid to step into the church. Maybe they had a bad experience sometime, and they just think, oh, I'm not good enough. They don't want me here, even though we do. So we have to work really hard at thinking about how to go out of our comfort zone and widen the welcome to other people, just as you have done at the community center. We need to do that everywhere we go. So, think about Lent as it reminds me that none of us have arrived yet. We may be doing some widening of the welcome, but there's always more that can be done. I think about what Oswald Chambers says in his book, My Utmost for His Highest. He says that we need to be about a continuous conversion. He says the hindrance of our spiritual life is that we will not be continuously converted. There are pockets of stubbornness where our pride spits on the throne of God and says, I won't do that. There are whole tracts of our lives that are not yet been brought into subjection, and it can only be done by continuous conversion. But the truth is, slowly but surely, we can claim the whole territory for the Spirit of God. Our new bishop, Bishop Palmer, puts it this way. He says we're called to create an intentional learning community and decide together what that learning is going to be. Each of us, all of us, have everything we need to take the next faithful step. I love that. Each of us, wherever we are today, we have everything we need to take the next faithful step in that continuous conversion as we try to widen the welcome to include all people in all circumstances. And I believe if we do that, we will eventually be able to see Jesus in each and every person we meet. And that's what widening the welcome is really all about. You see that picture up there of Jesus? That's a montage of lots and lots of different kinds of people, different races, different backgrounds. And I believe that picture, it's kind of hard to see it, but all those faces together make up the face of Jesus Christ. All of us together, people out there, people in here, we are the face of Christ. Paul puts it like this in his book to the Colossians. We need to get rid of anger, rage, malice, and slander, because we've taken off that old self with all its practices. We've put on the new self, and it's being renewed in us every day. So there's no longer any Greek or Jew, barbarian or slave, but Christ is all and is in all. So clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Let the peace of Christ control your heart, because you are called to peace, and be thankful. So our new self is being renewed every day. We're on this continuous conversion adventure. We're in an intentional learning community. And if we do all that, we are the body of Christ. We are the face of Christ. We are the family of God. We just got to live into it. It's who we are. Well, that's a lot of big words. Let me try to simplify it. Will you help me with your hands? Give me your hands a little bit. I want you to put your hands like this. Everybody knows how, like you're going to shoot somebody, right? That's easy. Well, now I want you to stretch your, not just one finger, not your middle finger, but your 3 fingers on each hand, and stretch them out there. Kind of hurts, right? Especially if arthritis. Kind of stretches it out there. But if you look at it, WW, widen the welcome. So that's a reminder we've got right here. Not to go, but to widen our welcome, to stretch it out. Because sometimes it is hard to stretch and welcome all out of 10 or whatever, check off the ones that are the hardest for you. Would be the hardest for you to sit down next to in the pew next Sunday. Somebody came in, who would be the hardest for you to sit down next to? Like I say, just be honest with yourself and maybe stick it in your Bible later to think about it some more. But just think about it for a minute. Think about who would be the hardest to sit down next to. Well, Widen, which is about a hideaway for women caught in the web of human trafficking. It's a safe place for them to come. It's a shelter for them. And that's named after Rahab in the Bible. And it offers a new start to people like Anna, who was here this morning. So Anna, why don't you come up and share how were you welcomed and how do you widen the welcome in your life? Tell us about it.
Microphone goes.
Yeah.
I guess my story started when I was about 5. I started being molested by my uncle throughout the years. Happened numerous times by different gentlemen. Finally, at 13, I ran away. Prior to that, I was in and out of trouble, going in the streets, hanging out, and I met an older gentleman.
Could I ask you to use the microphone on the podium? The two of them are interfering with each other. No, this one here, right there.
This one?
Yes.
Just take it off there. So,
Thank you.
He befriended me, and I hung out a lot with him. So when I decided to run away from home, he was my safe haven, so I thought. A couple of years in a relationship with him, I was used to drug traffic his drugs. About 15 and a half, 16 years old, I got arrested carrying 22 pounds of marijuana in from Jamaica into Florida. I didn't realize I was being a victim of human trafficking at the time. I just thought, it can't be that bad. It's better to be in the streets, it's better than being homeless. Well, I did some time. When I got back out, we reconnected, and I thought things were just kind of going to go back to the same thing. I knew it was wrong, but still, again, it was better than being in the streets. I guess he wasn't going to be able to use me no more because I had a criminal record, and every time I would travel, they would look at me because I was already arrested for drug trafficking. So he started making me sleep with his friends and co-workers and all these people, and then eventually he sold me to a pimp in Cleveland, Ohio. I was in Cleveland, Ohio probably just a few months, maybe 6 months, and I was arrested by a police officer. And it was at that time I told him that I was being forced to sleep with multiple men every night, that I had been beat, raped, and I was sold to a pimp named Black Dave. Well, instead of calling my grandmother and my mother, who he seen the week prior because they came up there looking for me with pictures, he called my pimp and I went home that night with him. And he beat the girls, and my life pretty much continued like that until I was 22, 23 years old. And I started making my escape plan. I knew by going in and out of jail, I started hearing stories about prostitutes that choose different pimps. And if you choose a new pimp, the new pimp will protect you from the old pimp. And if you do this enough, you're no longer an investment. You're a liability. So we're just going to use this girl and dog her as much as we can and get the money that we can. So I chose to do that. I started choosing all these different pimps, started getting bad reputations. So eventually, the last pimp I was with, I knew that he would be my exit, which is my children's father. 2001, I had an emotional and mental breakdown. I tried to commit suicide when I was 6 months pregnant with my youngest son. They said it was caused from all the years of forced prostitution and abuse. They said that they kind of compare it to the traumatic stress that a Vietnam veteran came back with. They didn't know how to handle my situation, so they over-medicated me and over-diagnosed me for 10 years. So about 5 years ago, I had this nasty incident with my children's father when they were down here. He snatched him away from me and kept him away from me for 5 years. Well, around that time, I was paying rent where Lou Cypher worked, well, Reverend Lou Cypher worked. At the time I met her, I didn't know she was a reverend. I worked with this lady for a year as an AmeriCorps Vista and didn't even know that she was a reverend. I mean, after I found out, it explained a lot why she was so open and why, you know, just amazing woman. So after the incident with my kid's father, and one more time, trying to commit suicide, I go in to pay my rent. Me and Lou talk often, but this time it just was different. She started talking to me about the Getting Ahead program and maybe getting an AmeriCorps Vista program, things that would affect my benefits. I was on disability for the mental breakdown. So she just constantly kept opening up and, you know, widening her welcome for me. We did a lot of trips together. I did the Getting Ahead program, and she's the reason why I started speaking. I would go to what I thought was just a training event. She's like, oh, by the way, in 5 minutes you need to speak about this story and how, you know, Getting Ahead has changed your life and how you learned how to deal with middle class. Because I was very colorful when Lou met me. It was very colorful. I used foul language at my boss. I didn't know how to dress appropriately for the office, anything. So this woman just totally took me underneath her wing and showed me how to be a better woman, you know, through her grace, just every day watching her graceful, in and out of work. I don't care what she was going through, she held her composure and she walked gracefully through it. When she found out she had breast cancer and her husband was sick, the grace that she showed is just, it just keeps me going. I know that now I have a purpose with God. before I didn't, I was ripped right before I ran away from home in church by an elder. So I kind of just didn't want nothing to do with the church or church folks. And just her love, Beth's love, and quite a few other Methodist women that's really widened their welcome to me has showed me that I can get through anything. Since then, I've accomplished my GED. I have got my associate's degree in the arts and human service management and my bachelor's program with the sciences of human service management with a focus on family and child services, because I want to open a group home to where other girls that have families like me and can't get jobs, they'll have a place to at least start, learn some type of trade, whether soap making, jewelry making. I'll find something for them to do, trust me. I'm a Jane of all trades, we'll figure it out. So I'm trying to apply for choices to the domestic violence shelter job, and didn't get it. Well, I was hired, my BCI came back, and it pulled the offer off the table. So I was devastated. I'm like, Beth, I don't know what I'm going to do, Beth, what am I going to do? So we just started talking about, well, what do you like to do? And you know, soaps came up, all these things came up, and she said, well, we have a job creation task force revolving loan. Why don't you do, you know, a little proposal? And this is what I learned in school, how to draw proposals. She said, you just need one sheet. That night I went home and wrote a 6-page proposal and have been on it since. We went 2 weeks later, and it was just supposed to be a conversation about the root of things. And next thing I know, there's two. There's UMC Job Creation Task Force, Carolyn and then Togo, we'll give you 500, and then another woman from the congregation like, I'll give you 500, and it was just amazing. And from there, just a snowball. And it's not enough to really get me out of debt or pay my insurance on my car or anything, but it keeps my bills on, keeps a few extra groceries, and it's getting better. Beth is so wise. She has talked to many people and just passed my information. And people call me from other churches like, well, I need 20 bars of this or 3 bars of this. So far I've gotten 3 people that order our bars regularly. So it's starting to build, and I'm just grateful and thankful to all the United Methodist women and men who has taught me how to re-trust men. I feel very comfortable around men now. Lou used to take me around her husband, and at first I didn't know what to think. Like, who would take a whole prostitute around their husband and trust them? But his grace and his love, it just brought me to a place where I can open up and trust many people. So just keep widening the welcome, and you guys are great for doing that. And I think that's the end of my story. Thank you.
embrace the people that are on that list that are hard to embrace? How do you do that? What's your next faithful step? Well, I believe today, St. Patrick's Day, we're all called to be missionaries. St. Patrick was called to be a missionary to the Irish. Jesus calls us all to be missionaries to everybody, not just to the Irish, not to just the whoever, but God calls us to be missionaries to everybody. And I'd love it to come up and talk to us afterwards at dinner, lunch, whatever. I'd love to talk to you more about that. How do we extend that amazing welcome that we've experienced to all kinds of people that we meet every day? Together, let's widen that welcome. Amen.
Okay, thank you. I will say this, men's group, we met yesterday, and we made that commitment. We were studying yesterday, talking yesterday, and we said we are committed to reaching out to the community. And we want the rest of the church to be committed to that as well. And we thank you for helping us to commit to that as well. But we're going to need your help in doing that. But the guys have said that's where we're headed, that's where we think our church should be headed as well. Thank you, Ken.